大家好, hello everybody, my name is Weiwei and welcome to my channel. When learning a foreign language, we often have all kinds of questions to ask our teacher or tutor, such as, how do you say this? What does that mean? In this lesson, we'll learn to ask these questions in Chinese instead of English or your native tongue. Let's dive in. How do you say blank in Chinese? 用中文怎么说？用中文怎么说？用中文 means in Chinese. 用 means to use. For example, 有用 means useful. Literally, to have uses, because 有 means have. 没有用 means to not have uses, which means it's useless. 没有 is the negative form of 有. You can also shorten that to 没用. So, since you're learning Chinese, you must find it useful. So you could say something like 说中文有用. Speaking Chinese is useful. 中文 means Chinese. 中文. There's another way to say it. 汉语. 汉语. They both mean the Chinese language. 中文 or 汉语. 用中文 literally means use Chinese, but that's how you would say in Chinese. So how would you say in English? 用英文. And you can swap out 中文 for other languages, just like that. 怎么说？怎么说 means how to say. 怎么 means how. 说 means to speak or to say. 说. So you can put other verbs after 怎么 to mean how to do that verb. We'll see more examples in the following slides. So the whole thing is 用中文怎么说 blank. So if you don't know how to say apple in Chinese, you would say 用中文怎么说 apple. You could also switch the word order around and say something like apple 用中文怎么说. Or you can even insert the word that you want to know in the middle and it becomes 用中文 apple 怎么说. So basically, as long as 用中文 is before 怎么说, the word order is very flexible. By the way, the word for apple in Chinese is 苹果. 苹果 is apple. Since you're learning Chinese, you can drop the 用中文 part and just say 怎么说 blank or blank 怎么说. Our next question is, how do you pronounce this character? 这个字怎么读？这个字怎么读？这个字 means this character. 这 means this. The opposite of this is that, which is 那. 个 is the most common measure word in Chinese. So if you've been learning Chinese for a while, you might know that in Chinese, we have measure words that we place before most of the nouns when you have an article or a number before it, which in this case, we have an article, which is 这. So you have to say 这个. Just like in English, you say a cup of water or a drop of water. Cup and drop are measure words. In Chinese, we have it for everything. So it's like saying a unit of something or this unit of something. 字 means character. 字. So 字 is often referring to a single character. If you're referring to a word that has maybe 2 or 3 characters, you can use 词. 词. So 这个词, this word. Or 句子. 句子 is a sentence. So 这个句子 this sentence. 怎么读？怎么读 means how to read. We already saw 怎么 in our previous slide. 怎么 means how. 读 means to read. 读书 literally means to read books. For example, 我喜欢读书. I like reading books. But we can also use 读书 to mean to go to school. For example, 他在读书. He's going to school. 读 means to read, but you can also use it to mean to pronounce in this situation. And here are some other verbs that you can use with 怎么 when we're talking about learning a language. For example, 用 to use. 怎么用 how do you use? 这个字怎么用 this character, how do we use it? Another one is 写. 写 means to write. 这个字怎么写 how do you write this character? For languages with letters, you might ask how do you spell a word? 拼这个词怎么拼 how do you spell this word? Just like the previous sentence, 用中文怎么说 this sentence, 这个字怎么读 you can also change the word order. 怎么读这个字 Or if you want to say, how do you pronounce this word? 怎么读这个词 How do you use this word? 怎么用这个词 or 这个词怎么用 So Chinese word orders are very flexible. Another very useful question you could ask is simply, what does something mean? 是什么意思 Blank 是什么意思 So 是 means all kinds of to be. Am, is, are, was, were. They're all 是 in Chinese since we don't conjugate verbs. 什么 means what. 意思 means meaning or interest. Here, obviously, it means meaning. When it means interest, though, there are some words that we could learn. For example, 有意思 to have interest. That means something is interesting. And then the opposite of that is 没有意思 to not have interest. Or you can shorten that to simply 没意思. For example, she is very interesting. 她很有意思. This book is boring. 这本书没有意思. 书 means book. 本 is the measure word for book. So 这本书没有意思. So going back to this sentence, 是什么意思 is what meaning. And you can also drop 是 and just say 什么意思 blank 什么意思 or blank 是什么意思 You can also use this sentence in other contexts. For example, 你什么意思 What do you mean? However, be careful when you say 你什么意思 because it can sound a little hostile, and we typically use it to confront someone after they've said or done something that we don't like. When you're learning a language, you often come across words or phrases that are similar. In order to ask about the difference between two words, this sentence will come in handy. A 和 B 有什么不同 A 和 B 有什么不同 So 和 means and. We use 和 to connect a list of nouns. For example, I like apples and bananas. 我喜欢苹果和香蕉 But you cannot use 和 to connect sentences. For example, I got up and I brushed my teeth. So there are two sentences in here, and we cannot use 和 to connect them. You would have to describe the sequence by using words like 然后, which means afterwards. We'll save that for another lesson. 有 means to have. 什么 again means what. 不同 means different or difference. 不同 同 by itself means same. 不 is how we negate most verbs or adjectives in Chinese, so 不同 means not the same. Another way of saying 不同 is 不一样. 不同 and 不一样, they mean the same thing, but 不同 is fancier than 不一样. Since 不 is used to negate things, 一样 means same. And another way to say same has 同 in it, 相同. So even though 同 by itself also means same, we don't usually use it by itself. We usually say 相同. 相同 and 一样, even though they technically mean the same thing, 相同 is fancier. 一样 is more casual sounding. So given this structure, how would you ask about the differences between the word 不同 and 不一样? 不同 和不一样有什么不同？ So here you could also say 不同和不一样有什么不一样？ Here's another example. 还是和或者有什么不同？ So what's the difference between 还是 and 或者？ So they both mean or, but 还是 is when you have to make a choice and we only see it in a question, such as, do you like A or B? 或者 is when you don't have to make a choice, either or, and you can use it in both questions and statements. So 还是和或者有什么不同 or 还是和或者有什么不一样。To say two things or two people are the same, you can say A 和 B 一样 or A 和 B 相同。So 她和她妹妹一样 She's just like her sister. When you're learning a language, it's so helpful to come up with your own sentences. And sometimes you want to double check to see if what you come up with is correct. So this is a way to verify it. 这样说对不对？这样说对不对？这样 means this way or like this. Remember 这 means this. So in order to say that way or like that, it's 那样。说 again means to speak or to say. So 这样说 literally this way say, but it means to say it like this. 对不对？对 means correct. 不对 means incorrect. So you're saying correct or incorrect. 这样说对不对？ Instead of saying 对不对, you could also say 这样说对吗？ Because by putting 吗 at the end of a sentence, that's another way of asking a yes or no question. 这样说对不对 or 这样说对吗？ The way to use this structure, you basically say something and then you follow it with 这样说对不对？ Or you could even drop 这样说 and just say 对不对？ When you're talking with your Chinese teacher or just anybody that speaks Chinese, oftentimes you would need people to repeat themselves. And here's a way to express that. 我没听清楚，请再说一遍。我没听清楚，请再说一遍。我没 is the same as 我没有, just slightly more casual, and that means I haven't. 听清楚means to hear or to listen clearly. 听 by itself means to listen or to hear. For example, 听音乐 means to listen to music. 清楚 means clear or clearly, since most Chinese adjectives are adverbs as well. Verb plus 清楚 means to do that verb clearly. 听清楚 means to listen or to hear clearly. 看清楚 means to see or to read clearly. 看 means to see or read. 写清楚 写 means to write, so to write something clearly. So here, 我没听清楚 means I haven't heard clearly. 请再说一遍。请再 means please again. 请 means please, and it's a very useful word to know. 请 you can just put it before verbs to mean please do this. 再 means again. You might know the phrase 再见, which means goodbye, but it literally means again see. So we use 再 before the verb. 说一遍 say once. So 说 is the verb here, and it means to speak or to say. 一遍 is a little hard to translate. It means once, but it implies do the whole thing. So 说一遍 means say the whole thing once. And 看一遍 means to read the whole thing or to see, to watch the whole thing once. 听一遍 to listen to the entire thing once. The whole thing is 我没听清楚，请再说一遍。I haven't heard you clearly. Please repeat. But sometimes, no matter how many times we listen to something, we still won't be able to understand it. And then you can say, 对不起，我听不懂。对不起，我听不懂。对不起 means sorry, and it's a very useful phrase to know. 对不起，我 for I or me. 听不懂，听不懂 means to not understand, specifically through listening. 听 means to listen or to hear, as we saw in our previous slide. 懂 means to understand, so 不懂 to not understand. You can use this structure with other verbs. For example, 看不懂 also means to not understand, but instead of through listening, it's through reading or seeing. So you could say, 我看不懂这本书. I don't understand this book. Or 我看不懂年轻人. I don't understand young people when I see how they act. So the whole thing is, 对不起，我听不懂. Hopefully after you've said that, your teacher will explain the thing again to help you understand it. And finally, we have a compliment that you can give to your teacher or tutor. 你教得真好。你教得真好. So 你 for you, 教得真好 means to teach really well. 教 means to teach. 教真好. We know 好 means good. 真 means real or true or really. So it means really well or really good. Remember what I said about Chinese adjectives and adverbs? They're often one and the same. So 真好 means both really well or really good. So you could say something like 你真好. You are really good, as in you are such a nice person. 你真好. So the 的 here serves a grammatical purpose. We can use the structure verb plus 的 plus an adjective or adverb to describe that verb. So here the verb is 教. The adjective/adverb is 真好. So 教得真好 means to teach well. But the structure isn't as simple as it seems at a first glance. And the reason for that is a lot of verbs have built-in nouns, or even the verbs that don't have built-in nouns. When a verb takes an object, we need to pay attention to how to use this structure. Basically, when there's no noun or the noun is implied, which in this case, 教中文, teach Chinese, when it's all understood that it's Chinese that we're talking about, then you can just say 教得很好, to teach well. But when the noun does exist, then it gets a little more complicated, and there's basically two ways of saying that. So you could either say the verb and the object and repeat the verb, and then the adjective/adverb, because the has to follow the verb directly. So for example, if you want to say to speak Chinese well, 说中文说得很好. And then 说 is the verb here, that's why it shows up twice. If that sounds redundant to you, there's another way. Basically, you can drop the first verb and just flip the noun and the verb. Instead of 说中文, you just say 中文说得很好. So how would you say to teach Chinese well? So two ways. 教中文教得很好 or 中文教得很好. I hope this isn't too confusing for you. And please leave me a comment below if you have questions. And if you like this content, please like and subscribe. And for more ways to support this channel, you can check out the description box. 谢谢你. Thank you so much. I hope to see you in our next lesson.